This live stream will be a brief one. I just want to outline some technical details for my upcoming Plato course. So let's wait and see until a few people come in. The last couple of times I introduced more or less what the course will address philosophically, but this time we're just going over some of the technical details and the questions that I've received. So if you have any questions on what the course will look like when you're actually enrolled, then this is the best time to ask that question. I thought I'd do a live stream because that allows me to address all these questions in one. Okay, and at once. The one and the many. All right, so one question that for some reason some people ask again and again is, will this be for YouTube? This is not a YouTube course. This is behind a paywall on Teachable. So if you want to get access to this course, then the link to enroll is in the description of this video and here. This takes you to this website. So I'll just describe this now. This is Teachable. It's a platform that we use to upload our courses. I'll show you what this looks like on the inside. Now, when you enroll, you get access to 10 video lectures plus the audio files and the lecture notes as PDFs, which you can download and print out. And the access is indefinite, or what the marketing people call lifetime access. But this will always be behind the enrollment page. So this is not to be made public and will not be made public. So for any enrollment, you always get the 10 lectures plus a bonus lecture of about 1.5 hours, which is also not publicly available. So another question that I get, which maybe I should address right now, is what's the best way to support the work on this channel? Well, one of the best ways is to enroll in any of my courses. There are plenty more. You could enroll in my German Idealism course, one of my Heidegger courses, my Nietzsche course, and later in this year, Aristotle and Kant, and my Baudrillard seminar, etc. But now is the time perhaps to enroll in Plato's Republic if you've always been meaning to read this course. And I'll get to your questions in the end, except if they maybe fit well with the flow of this. So let me describe what happens when you enroll. When you enroll, for whichever tier, whichever study option, this is what you see. So this is the welcome lecture, and these are the 10 proper lectures here, okay? So in total, 11 videos. Now here we are. This will take a bit of time. Let me just turn off the audio here. So this is the first lecture. As I mentioned, all recorded in Athens and in Delphi last October. And so this is the video file. You can also put this on a bigger screen. You can listen to the audio here.
Kateben.
So I don't know if
I
you can
walked
hear that.
down.
You can hear a bit of Athens in the background. And so this is what the lectures look like on the inside. You will also, once the course properly starts, there will be a mention here with every lecture which sections precisely to read. So for example here, Plato 1 is book 1 and 2, and then the Stephanus Pagination 328 to 373. This will be mentioned for every single lecture. So if you take this on your own, then you can just follow along. You'll know exactly what to read, which books to read. Then you listen perhaps to the lecture first, do the reading, take some notes. This is also a question that I often get. How do you best start preparing for philosophy? That's quite difficult to respond to, because there's not really that much that, if you can read and write and you've read a bit, then there's nothing that stops you from going to a thinker such as Plato, just as you can only learn to swim when you actually swim. So the best thing then to do is, once you're enrolled, if let's say you take only the lectures, you follow along the lecture. The lecture will give you hints at and explain some of the most important philosophical themes. It's not a repetition of what Plato has to say about this is the role of women, this is the role of men, this is what children do. Anyone can understand that. The philosophical questions that arise in the Politeia, that's what is significant here. So, and as this question, even though I've addressed this a couple of times, let me just say this again. The main issues, just to have a few, just to get a notion of what we'll be discussing, we will discuss the notion of justice, dikaiosyne, and here we have a question from Milo May, which fits in well here, which is how much ancient Greek will be covered in the course. This is not a course on ancient Greek, so you won't learn ancient Greek. That much should be obvious, but it is a course on ancient Greek philosophy, which means that we have to address the original ancient Greek. You don't have to know ancient Greek. If you can't read Greek, that's not an issue. But I am working with the original Greek, and I am providing throughout the lectures, I'm using Roman letters for that to make it accessible to everyone. But I will be addressing the original Greek here and there, try and provide my own translations, especially of the word eidos, which is usually translated as form, or also of the word dikaiosyne, which is usually translated as justice. But as we shall see in the course, justice is perhaps not the best translation. So the ancient Greek will be very important, but I don't... it's not a requirement that you know ancient Greek, and you won't be going away if you don't know ancient Greek. You won't be able to read ancient Greek texts. If that's what you desire, then you need to take an ancient Greek course. That's not what a philosophy course can give you. But without the ancient Greek, one cannot read Plato or Aristotle or any of the ancient Greeks. So, yeah, just to say the obvious, I will only respond to questions that are on this course. And if you have any questions on how to enroll, etc., that's what I will be responding to. I would always recommend John Burnett, still the Oxford edition, the original one. So let's go to... Let me double check if everything's looking good. Yes. So what will be... So if you have questions specifically on this course, then raise this question. That's the only question I can respond to. And perhaps this is also a good time to say this. You don't just get, if you enroll in this first tier here, self-study, that's the lectures plus the bonus lecture. But for a broader discussion by seminars that I lead, 10 seminars in total, 6 to 8 p.m., from Saturday the 20th of January onwards until the 23rd of January. That's 1 to 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time if you're in the US, or 7 to 9 p.m. Central European Time if you're on the continent, except for Portugal. Then the group seminars are really for you. If you can make at least, let's say, 5 sessions, then that's for you. We record all sessions. If you can't make it to one of them, then you can just listen back to the recording during the week, and you won't have been there, obviously, but if there's any question, any issues that you have, just come next week, you ask the question, and we can then, so you won't miss out that much. That's for you then, group seminars. If you can make at least 5, I think that's for you. This will also give you the chance to write a few short essays. Of course, the discussion will be a bit broader. So we won't just stay maybe with Plato. If you want to go and expand a bit, we will have to bring in Heraclitus and Parmenides as well. So this will all be discussed also at the seminars. If you then do join the seminars, which you can do here, so this is what it looks like. You click on this link, then you click on Enroll Now, and that takes you to the enrollment page. And once you're in, you'll get an email from me about a week before the first seminar with all details. We use Zoom, so we'll be meeting over Zoom. I will be sitting here for the most part, except when I'm traveling. And the seminars, maybe that's something to be discussed, is to quote from one of my students here, is everything university should have been but wasn't. Actually, that's what most people have said so far who went to university and tried studying philosophy at university. So you'll find these seminars are very lively, they're not very academic at all. We're trying to figure out the text without already knowing everything and everything being already clear. We don't consider any secondary literature. So if you want to read the newest paper on Plato, if that's not the place for you, then you should stick to standard academia. We'll just be reading the original text without the pretense of knowing already what's going on. We don't. We read this text, we try to read this text as if it were totally foreign to us. So that's the group seminars. You'll be meeting other people. So what happens in the seminars? Full 2 hours, so 20 plus hours of seminars. At the final seminar, you can present your own work. I can also mark short essays. I'll mention this again at the seminars, actually in between if you're working towards something. Short means 500 to maximum 800 words. That's the maximum I can look at. And you can see some of the examples of the pro seminar here on my channel. Just look for the playlist pro seminar so you see the different courses we've offered. The most recent one would be on Oswald Spengler's The Decline of the West, where you can hear some of the student contributions. So if you can make it to that one, to the seminars, that would be great, and we can actually have a discussion. I understand that some people can't make it time-wise, so this perhaps is best for you. But also, to say this again, if you enroll, if you want to support the work on this channel for this year, then consider this a subscription to the channel, and this helps me keep the lights on and provide me with bread and wine, because as you know, in Greek philosophy, the dialogues, they were mostly drunk, weren't they? Symposium meant to drink together. So if you want to come and drink wine and smoke a cigar in the comfort of your home during the seminar, so that's absolutely fine as long as you're not completely drunk. I used to drink quite a bit during the seminars. I no longer do that, but we all get older. So that's the seminars. Now, if you have a longer project, perhaps you're writing on something, or you've got this idea for a book or a paper or an essay, or you want to get active yourself in the online sphere, maybe you're starting a Substack, or you are thinking about putting out your own philosophy videos, etc., etc., anything of the sort. So I've had playwrights, professors of mathematics from Berkeley, a wonderful gentleman, and many people actually in tech and lawyers and creatives of all sorts who come and take the additional philosophical dialogues. This time you can choose from either 5 sessions, that would mean that we meet every 2 weeks, or 8 sessions with me, which would mean that we meet in the beginning every 2 weeks, and we intensify it in the end. And with this you can think of those as sort of your meeting with your PhD supervisor, if you like. So this might help you if you're planning on perhaps either you're working on something on Plato or Platonism that you think you might benefit from if we had more of an intense discussion again, if I looked over your writings. I can also help you structure your writings. I've written quite a bit, not just only my many lecture courses here, which are all, most of them are written out before I record them. I've published a book with Springer. If you don't know this, perhaps it's a book on Heidegger. I've published articles in English and in German. I've given talks in Italian, German, and English, and lectures. I'll be speaking in Cambridge on the 19th of February. I've been invited to give a talk on Plato's relationship, on Plato and his relationship between mythos and logos. So that's on the 19th of February. I think this one will also be, there will be a Zoom link for that one that people can sign up for. I will make people aware of that once that's all firmed up and it's live on the website of the Center for the Study of Platonism. So I have been writing for many, many years. I know how to structure something well. I know how to begin to write, which is most often the worst part. I know what to leave in. I know what to leave out. That's the art. The art is with most people is what you leave out. Not what you put in, but what you would leave out, because it gets too long and it gets way all over the place. We need to. It's actually an art form to be very brief. Heidegger was not very brief, was he? Carl Schmitt, on the other hand, he was very succinct. So, if you want to get, and this you don't have to have a writing project per se, but you might benefit from additional dialogue sessions, tutorials. We could also just read the text together line by line. We usually meet for about 60 to 90 minutes. And so that would be for you. You click on here, either 5 or 8 sessions, and then you click enroll now, and it takes you to the enrollment page. And then I'll be in touch again about a week before we meet for the first time. So let me point this out again. If you, by the way, here I am. This is in Athens. This is in Plato's Academy. So if you have any questions, by the way, specifically on this course, and only on this one, on Plato, then raise that now in the chat and I'll get to it either when it fits or at the end. Seminars begin on Saturday, the 20th of January. That's in 13 days. I think, so we currently have about, 8, maybe 9 places left in the seminars. Any issues, if there are any technical issues with payment, you can this is my email address, just email me. So what we'll be discussing? We'll be discussing Plato's notion of justice. As I mentioned before, we'll be retranslating the word dikaiosyne. We'll be looking at the education, or the periagoge, and the paideia of the philosopher kings. Plato's theory of the soul, the theory of the so-called forms, the 3 castes of the city, of the polis, of the Callipolis, the beautiful city. Then, of course, Book 6, the analogies of the sun and of the lion, as well as the myth or the allegory of the cave. But also, we'll be looking at Plato, the historian. Plato, who considers the anacyclosis of the forms of government, and why he sees democracy, for example, as a sign of degeneracy. We'll then be looking at the significance of beauty, the idea of the good, mimesis, and the banning of the artists, and the vision of this very strange, uncanny myth in book 10, which seemingly just comes out of nowhere at the very end, on the traveling of the soul when the soul dies. Not when the soul dies, sorry, but when the person dies. So all seminar dates are listed here. You find everything here. This is a screenshot from one of the lectures when I filmed at night. So I put in a lot of effort into planning this, so I had to find the apartment that had the right view, that also on top of it was not absurdly expensive. It had to be quiet enough to be able to record. It's not very easy to record outside, especially if you're not a professional. I had to get the lighting right. I had to make sure there's not enough wind. Well, I can't make sure of that, but when there was too much wind, I couldn't really film, so I had to film at night very often. I spent very long days in Athens, sometimes up for about 14 to 16 hours for 5 days to record 2 lecture courses, actually. This one, Plato, and another one on Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics, which I will teach beginning sometime in late August. This one is first, then I'll teach Kant, and then Aristotle later in the year. Also, because this question is, when are you teaching? There's another question that people often ask. When are you teaching this course again? The honest answer is I don't know. So this is now our 5th year. I've been doing this for since 2020, so we're going into our 5th year. And during this time, I've only been able to teach 2 of my courses twice, time-wise, because I do want to bring other people in. I don't want to have too much of a bloated administration, to keep everything lean and such. I cannot teach it, and also these courses are very long. So it's likely that if you want to take the seminars, then now is the time to sign up, and not any other time, because I cannot know if I'll be teaching this again. Certainly not next year. Maybe again in 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years. But then it will be a different course too. So I'll have to go back to Athens and rewrite everything beforehand. By the way, so another question is, by the way, so if you have questions, ask it now. I'll get to it in a second. So you will have, so another question I always get, I think I answered this before, but people are coming in and out. So will I have access to the course materials after the course? Yes. No matter which tier you sign up for, you'll have access indefinitely. As long, until the end of time, for all eternity. God knows what will happen to the internet, but as long as we go, you will be having access to this, and you can listen to these lectures again and again. So this actually gives you the opportunity to maybe go along with the course, do some of the reading, listen to the discussion. Students are different. Not everyone has to participate in the discussion. You can just listen to everyone. Then you come back in. So you come back in and you read the text again. You listen to the lecture again. Every single time you'll hear something else. You can come back to it again and again. Nicholas, please send me an email about this. I think you need to say a bit more. I don't entirely know what you mean. So all lectures at this point should be available to you. And if for some, they're all published. So maybe you can rephrase what you mean. The Nicholas is enrolled. So anyone who is enrolled, you will get an email a week beforehand. The way you should prepare for the first lecture is to listen to, let me show you this, 1 second. So this one here, that's the first lecture, proper. Yeah? So this is what we will be discussing at the first seminar. The best way to start is to start reading books 1 and 2 of the Republic. And if you have time and you're already enrolled, the best other text to read from Plato, don't overload yourself. So this is another question we always get is, what about secondary literature? Don't worry about secondary literature. Read the original text. Opinions don't matter of scholars. And to prepare for this text specifically, what might make it more accessible is to read the Meno dialogue. Meno. Plato's Meno. If you have time. If not, you just start with book 1 and you go along with the text. Books 1 and 2 are the suggested reading. And this one here, Plato 1, is the lecture for the first seminar discussion. And as always, everyone who's enrolled will get, at least everyone who's enrolled in the seminars and higher, will get an email a week before the first seminar on how to prepare for the first seminar. And then we'll keep this going for the entire 10 weeks this way. And Harris, as always, thank you very much. Something for the great effort and for this great opportunity. Kateben ches eis peraya. Thank you. Yes, I butchered their pronunciation, obviously. But maybe what you're referring to is this year. So I recorded an introductory lecture at the very end of the entire journey, at close enough at least to the Piraeus, what's now the Piraeus, the harbor of Athens. So I walked down to the harbor of Athens, which is, of course, exactly how the Politeia begins, with this walking down. And as we now have seen this beautiful Greek word here, kateben, I think they would rather say like kateven or so, but you can grab me, Harris, at the course. Okay, Nicholas, I'm glad I answered your question. Okay, good. So, why is the first word of the Republic kateben? I walk down. The first word is kateben because here Plato shows us that he isn't just an idealist, so-called, as we have come to call this. But we cannot just indwell in the realm of so-called eternal forms, and we'll also get to why that even is a product of the imagination or of fancy. And rather, they need to have weight in the appearances. And we will find again and again the movement of katabasis and anabasis, katabasis and anabasis, of walking down and walking up throughout this text. So I would also like to stress that at this course, just in terms of its content, there's something striking about Plato. Plato is either just the rational Plato, but then he's not the Plato of theomania, of divine madness, or of mythos. Plato was a myth maker. Plato is we know the so-called myth of Atlantis from Plato, for example. We I would consider the cave to be a myth, the allegory of the cave. And we'll get to what I mean by myth at the course. Now, even perhaps, of course, the noble lie, this origination story of Athens, that's to a certain degree a myth, but it's a moralizing myth. Yeah. Now, the Plato, who is the metaphysician, as we would call him perhaps today, is rarely brought into dialogue with the Plato who is a historian. But we cannot really separate that. And I also make a point of calling this course Plato's Republic or Plato's Politeia, rather than just the Republic by Plato and Socrates in dialogue with etc. etc. So I do think that this is mostly a work by Plato and not so much by his teacher Socrates. In any event, those were some of the most important questions. Who runs? Okay, another question: who runs seminars? To say the obvious, I run the seminars. I lead them. So there's no teaching assistant. I'm my own teaching assistant. I think there's nothing. It's actually a bit sad that very often professors teach the lectures, but then don't teach the seminars, because in the seminars, that's where the magic happens. You know, you can go in and you can present your lecture, and you can do this for 10 years, and you basically always say the same thing. But at the seminars, at these intense seminars where people throw questions at you and they come up with something completely strange, precisely because they haven't read any secondary literature, precisely because they're not trying to impress anyone, or they don't need to get a good grade or anything. They're just, people come simply and purely because they want to read these texts. They're looking for something. And obviously I cannot provide answers to the life's questions, and maybe these texts cannot even answer them, and they shouldn't answer them in a propositional formalistic way, but they can point us to something. And this makes the whole difference, I think, between a standard university and such an independent academy or para-academic institution, however you want to call it, as mine, is that there's ultimately no other reason for coming than the reason of scolaire, which is the word where we get school from in the first place, usually translated as leisure. By the way, we will learn why Athens is built on scolaire. So the Callipolis, the beautiful city, is built on scolaire, in opposition to Atlantis. So I will really try and present the whole Plato, not just the Plato who develops dialectical logic and diaresis, etc., but rather the Plato also who writes great myths that influence us to this day. The cave is perhaps the most prominent one. His myth on writing, the origin of writing that we find in the Phaedros, might also be perhaps of significance. We could also talk about that. So at the seminars, there should be enough space. The main focus, obviously, is the Politeia. But if you've read other dialogues by Plato and you want to go over into other, in a different direction, perhaps you have a question on something, or something strikes you from your reading from the Gorgias, say, or the nomoi, the laws, because the laws are an extension, as it were, of the Politeia, then we can definitely go there. So let me see if I think I've answered almost everything that's important. Yeah, I don't want to turn you into scholars or academics, which is why the more naively you, naive in a good sense, if you come to this in a naive manner, naive meaning, or maybe native is a better word, fresh, without much baggage, you'll be much more open to what will occur. I'm not a dogmatic Platonist by any stretch of the imagination, not a dogmatic anything. So I won't try to hammer anything into you. But I will try to make sure to make you see that the story is much more difficult than the simplistic two-world assumption in Plato, where you have the world of eternal forms up here and the ephemeral world down here. So, let me know if you have any more questions. If not, then I'll just say this again. Seminars begin on the 20th of January. That's a Saturday. We will be meeting always from 6 to 8 p.m. UK time, 1 to 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. All seminar dates are listed on this website that I'm showing you right now, the link to which is this one. Okay? So all seminar dates, everything is here. If you, let's say you have time, you couldn't make it just for time reasons to the seminars, then this is for you. This also supports the work on this channel. Again, people ask, how can I support the work on this channel? The easiest and best way is to enroll in a course and you actually get access to the lectures. If you have any issues, technical issues, you need to send me an email. The email address is here. Because sometimes for some reason this doesn't work. Technology is not perfect, and hence we'll never have a perfect surveillance state, you see. So, here, group seminars. If you can make at least 5, this one is for you, but you have to enroll now. There's less than 8 available, I think, at this point. If any session you can't make it to, not an issue. You can let me know. You don't have to. We record every seminar, and you can then just listen back to what you missed, and you won't be missing out much. The seminars look like this. You come in, you've listened to the lecture, you've done some of the reading or all of the reading or even more, and we start discussing the questions, the issues that have come up for you. So usually we'll start with either a brief introduction by me or a question from one of you. Then we'll send you off to breakout sessions. And the breakout sessions are about, we'll do maybe 15 minutes, 20 minutes. That's with 3 to 4 people in each group. But also, you won't just be discussing a question. Sometimes we'll have you read a section in Plato. So I'll choose a section, which maybe is a page or 2 pages, so that you learn to read together and to read properly, to take your time in reading. Because very often when we read, we don't actually read. What we do is we look for the information that, this is the issue with Wikipedia and all of this nonsense, Wikipedia and secondary literature. We look for the information that corresponds to the preconceived notion that we already have, and this then corroborates what we think we know, and hence we feel like we already know what's going on. But you have to read this in a way that you realize you don't know anything. Oida udeneidos, I know that I know nothing. This is not an ironic statement by Socrates or attributed to Socrates. It's not ironic detachment. This is an understanding that once we read, and it's funny to see it's just about 5 people dropped out when I said this. I never know why people leave, obviously, but it is sometimes quite telling when people leave, isn't it? So, So the reading exercise will be for you to read in a group, which we also don't do very often, to read together and then look at every single sentence and make sure you can follow along with every claim that's being made, and that you question your own preconceived notions. So there will be reading exercises, writing practices, etc. All of this, but only at the seminars. We cannot offer this for anyone who does the self-study. But you can rest assured that you have become a patron of the arts. If you, however, want to take the opportunity and read Plato even more directly with me, because maybe you have a writing project that I can help you with, or you're working maybe towards building your own online platform of any sort. Maybe you're trying to write something for Substack, or build your own YouTube channel, etc. Then you should take the 5 sessions or the 8 sessions with me. 5 sessions means that we begin meeting about 2 weeks in, and then we meet every 2 weeks. You can write a really long piece. Sometimes I've had students who've sent me half a PhD thesis, 40,000 words. And we go through that together, and I give you detailed comments, not feedback. I don't like the word feedback. It's a cybernetic word. I don't feed anything back to you, not an animal. I give you a commentare, to think with. Or if you would like to spend a bit more time with me, there's about 1 or so available of each of those. Then take the 8 sessions. We'll do maybe 2 in the beginning, then 1 every 2 weeks, and another 2 in the end. And of course, all of this does help me keep the lights on. But you have to enroll now. It's absolutely vital that you do so today. So please follow the link to enroll in the chat. Yeah. Okay. You cannot always enroll in the course. You can enroll in the course now, and then the enrollment will close. The self-study tier will reopen again at some point, but everything else, of course, will be closing whenever the course is full. So there's a 35 cap for the seminars, and that's it. When it closes, it closes. Yeah, okay, so here's someone saying something about someone. So very often you'll find that public intellectuals, etc., they've not actually read anything. And I would say the 2 gentlemen who have been mentioned here are probably both not too different from one another in this regard, in other regards, Don't think for a second that the one of them is more to the other side than the other one. They're both playing the same game. And no, they have not read very much. To quote, what Zizek has to say on Hegel is atrocious. If you want to understand Hegel, do not read Zizek. And everything else Zizek has to say is basically a rip-off of Baudrillard and Heidegger and a few other French thinkers. So yeah, you can waste your time with that, or you just read Plato. Yeah, here's a very good question. A couple of very good questions, so I'm reading up on them. So yes, Plotinus, it's not this, distortion is always such a mean way of putting it. But to a certain extent, of course, I think it's mystifying Plato, and it's corroborating the one as a substance, and at least to my understanding. So that's Here's a very good question. That's something for what is the difference between eidos and essence, ousia, beingness? Is the eidos the form that makes a being what it is? So I think it's good that you bring in for essence, you mention ousia, because you see, this is, so the question itself is already going through different hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years of translation. So it's questionable to me whether we can actually even just say what's the difference between eidos and essence. Essence is a Latinized version of translations of Aristotle, not of Plato. And ousia, sometimes ousia is substance. Essence, by the way, is totienenai, that which was. That's usually translated as essence in Aristotle. So we would have to come in a bit earlier. Ousia usually in Plato is translated as being or presence. If you follow Heidegger, for example, and the eidos is, and so what's underdeveloped in Plato, and we'll get to this, is language, and this will only really bubble to the surface with Humboldt and Hegel, and of course especially then with Heidegger. And it perhaps, so the way you put this here, I think this is fine. But we would have to. Okay, so this is very good. No, absolutely not. So it's absolutely not a pattern. Very, very, very clear no. Yeah. And the best translation for eidos is Begriff. Yeah. Concept. We don't have to get spooky here. We don't have to be, oh, it's these forms up there. They're waiting in the other world, or they are these fundamental patterns that we can see repeated everywhere. No. It's something much more down to earth. It's nothing spooky, but you see, it's so much more alive and honest when you actually start thinking. Well, because they were all just bad Nietzscheans. Well, they were all suffering from a 19th century. So Platonism, they were all trying to overturn 19th century Platonism. That's putting it very, too simply. And Platonism is definitely to be distinguished from Plato. Plato is not a Platonist. Will we be able to? Yes, I think so. Because so let me read it out. Will we be able to critically review current interpretive approaches such as modal Platonism after the course? So I would go as far as saying that with Plato, and I mentioned this before, that Plato in some sense foresees the Universalienstreit, the universals controversy. The issue that I have with even just the Universalienstreit, and I think this is also probably the reason why Heidegger doesn't really consider it that much, is that it's a reification. You see? And what's necessary in thinking, as thinking things, philosophy is not, there it is, boom, here's the book, read it, it's all said and done. This is why it's a dialogue too. It comes into a mode of thinking. And in thinking, also in Aristotle, when you read Aristotle closely to the Greek and the metaphysics, you realize that now thinking has to we have to bring in a ground, hypokeimenon, that which underlies, or else we're just like a Baron of Münchhausen. We have to pull ourselves out. Yeah. This is now the good questions are coming in. So this is good. I lost my train of thought here now. Anyways, here. Well, this I won't answer here, but is the concept in the being, or is it mind dependent as much as I dislike the term? Well, why do you dislike the term? Why would anything be not mind dependent. What is there except for nous? But no, Plato does speak of so the reification. You see, once in language we reify, we make the universals things, then we're lost. We've already lost. We've lost the plot. So here, I won't answer this question by Marcel, the mind dependence, etc., because this is something we'll be discussing at the seminars. And but I can tell you that Plato already mentions in the Sophist the gigantomachia perithesousias, the gigantic battle for being between what we've come to call realism and idealism. And as you know, this is the issue of Kant. This is the issue of almost absolutely everyone. And Plato is very much aware of it. And of course, we have to go over and beyond Plato in some regard. But yeah, well, okay, but look, so this is a good question. We'll discuss the necessary eternity of the soul at the final seminar when we discuss the myth of the vision of Er, Er. I think there's a reason. So in Plato, you've got the notion of the mythos eikos, the likely, let's say, the probable myth. And there's a reason why very often Plato has to bring in myth in terms of just the language that he's not yet, because he doesn't, and you'll see me also sometimes import Aristotelian language, precisely because there's something lacking still in Plato that he cannot quite say it. So, okay, final question. How do you... So I don't rate anything, okay? That's the very first. You're asking it the wrong way. I don't rate. I don't have takes. There's no rating. There's no evaluation. I don't know where this language comes from. But let's just put it this way. What do you make of Nietzsche's caricature of Plato? Well, he's not caricaturing Plato. He's actually he's holding up the mirror so often, to his readers, to his colleagues, his Altphilologen-Kollegen, his colleagues in the old philology departments. That's who he's talking to. That's who he's talking to in Twilight of the Idols when he mentions the fairy tale of the ideal world, and the real world and how its disappearance, etc. So he's holding up a mirror to the people of his time. That's what Nietzsche always does, because he understands that we are at a crossroad, that if you do not transvalue our values, and that's the limitation of Nietzsche's thought, is that he thinks in terms of values, then we're basically screwed. Okay. So this question by Simon was really great on the psyche and on the soul. So we will discuss also eternity and Plato's relationship to time, etc. This must be in there. But you will see that we will really be pushing for a Plato who is not a Platonist and has to use sometimes certain language where the language of logos is not yet perhaps fully there. Let's not forget, Plato is more or less one of, if not the first philosopher in a sense. That's not to say that Heraclitus and Parmenides aren't. We would consider them philosophers, but in the sense of knowing exactly what it is that philosophy is addressing. That's really Plato and Aristotle would be, I think, the first ones. Knowing that being and thinking are the same. That's not to say that anything I can think of that pops into my head is. You see, again, that's the issue. And no one gets out of this question. Absolutely no one. So, for example, not even Heidegger. Yeah. I hope that these are really excellent questions. So if you, Marcel, you, Simon, Fitzvik, whoever you are, Milo, I hope that you will enroll Here's a question. Will you ever do a... Oh, sorry. Why is... Sorry, this is... Ugh. What, will you ever do a course... I couldn't read your question. Will you ever do a course on Heidegger and ancient Greek philosophy? No, that's not very likely. I have courses on Heidegger. One of them is on being and time. Another one on being and death, which is the entirety of Heidegger's philosophy. And another one on Heidegger on technocracy. And as it goes with Heidegger, you have to consider the Greek. You have to bring in Plato and Aristotle and Heraclitus, sometimes Parmenides. And that is good enough for me. That's, Heidegger has done his work. And it's a very important work. It has, again, its limitations, because very often Heidegger is not rising to the level of logic. He's not a logician. And he can get trapped in picture thinking, to speak with a Hegelian term. And perhaps in these very literal translations of some of the Greek terms, you find oversimplifications in Heidegger that can be very helpful as a heuristic, as a sort of phenomenological approach to something. But they also just, you see, Heidegger is deeply worried about the cave and what it means. But he does not understand that you cannot just stay with the cave. You cannot just stay with the image. Not even Plato stays with the image. Plato does not absolutize the image. I think the cave is absolutely fundamental to understand our time, especially if you read the first paragraph of this book, Edward Benet's Propaganda. If you haven't heard of it, well, you better should look it up. So, okay. I will no longer answer any questions that are on philosophy. I would like to thank you very much, even though Marcel, this question is excellent. I'd like to thank you very much for being here. If you know anyone who wants to read Plato this year, let them know. The time to enroll is now. The link to enroll is here. And I'll say this again. Any more questions that you have, enroll, come, be there, and we can continue the discussion. We won't continue the discussion here tonight. So, self-study, right here. Group seminars beginning in 13 days, 20th of January. That's a Saturday, always from 6 to 8 p.m. UK time. This is here. If you have a writing project, so I lead these seminars, you can ask your questions. The questions tonight, Simon, Marcel, whoever you all are, they were all excellent. So I hope that you can come. If you want to take the 5 sessions with me, that helps me keep the lights on even longer. So then if you have a writing project, etc., maybe you're working towards a PhD, you just need more time to discuss this all with someone, or you're working towards putting out your own writings on the internet, etc., in this emerging metaversity. Or, of course, there's also the payment plan for the group seminars. So that's just 3 payments for the group seminar. So this is it. The time to enroll, my friends, is right now and not any other time. The link to enroll is this one. Please share this video with anyone. Share it widely. Share it all over the place. Share the link to the course. If you absolutely cannot make it to the course for any reason, consider supporting my work here on PayPal or Patreon. The links are somewhere on the description page of my YouTube channel. That would be much appreciated. So Marcel, Simon, Milo, who else? Fizivik. Payman, Claudia, perhaps Claudia. I hope to see you all, and everyone else who was listening and didn't ask a question. Nicholas and Harris, of course, I look forward to seeing you. I know that you have enrolled. Ivan, I hope that you can make it as well. So again, see you in 2 weeks. Thank you very much.